Hi everyone, and welcome to my final art journaling workshop, which has kindly been funded by Dublin City Arts Office. My name is Breda Jackson from Mooncat Art Design, and if you've missed the first workshop, there's a link in the video description so you can catch up with that at any stage. Sadly, we're unable to gather in Mud Island Community Garden for the workshop itself, but I will be drawing inspiration from there as always. In today's workshop, we'll be creating a DIY junk journal and learning lots of different decorating techniques so you can create a journal that is very unique to you. Check out the video description for lots of extra info, tips and tricks, and please ask me any questions in the comments and subscribe to my channel to get notifications. You can also join me in a private Facebook group where you can ask questions, share your work, and discuss all things journaling. It's also somewhere where I can give you lots of extra info and journaling prompts. You'll find the link to the Facebook group in the video description, so please join me there. And now let's get started with workshop 2. So today we're going to be working on creating one of these DIY junk journals. They're known as junk journals because they're made out of mainly recycled papers. In this case, it's a paper pennies bag. So you can still see some of the branding on it. Which is cut up and forms the main part of the journal. It's interspersed with other pages and some decorative papers and lots of other things that I'll go through with you throughout the workshop. This journal is sewn into the cover. And it's made up of one collection of papers known as a signature. So all these pages are folded in on themselves, and then there's a central double page where you do the stitching in through the cover to hold it all together. So I'll be going through all of that with you. This journal that we're going to be making today is going to use one of these recycled paper bags, or I have a few of them. I might need more than one, depending on how much we can get out of the paper bag itself. And then we'll be using other papers to make up the signature before we sew it into a cover. You use whatever bag you have, and that will determine what size your journal is. When you've opened it out and you work out how many pages you can get. So I'm going to just start by taking this bag apart to see exactly how many pages I can get out of it. And I'll just speed that up and come back to you in a few minutes. So now I've cut out a number of double pages out of 3 paper bags that I have. I've measured it so I get a page that's going to be approximately 9 inches by 6 inches. And I've cut it double because we will be folding all the pages in on themselves like this, putting them together and then sewing to the cover from the inside. So your bags could be a different size. So what you need to do is just measure how many pages you can get out of a single bag. This is a good size because it represents approximately an A4 page. So any of the pages that we're going to include in the journal will be standard size. So that's a handy size, but whatever size you can make out of the paper bag that you have, or the paper bags, if you have more than one, just cut it to any size. I have, let's say, a smaller one that I've done here out of packaging paper, so you can do it literally any size that you want. And we'll be using mainly these pages for the journal, but we'll also be interspersing them with all sorts of other papers, including some of the monoprint papers that we made in the last workshop, and some of these type of tea-stained printed papers. So this page was made from just a printout from the computer, and then I've stained it with tea. And I'm actually going to show you how to do that now, so that you can maybe include some of these type of pages as well. And I'll show you that now, and then we can go through all the other types of papers as well. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do tea dyeing or tea staining of these type of papers. And what you need is just some printouts from your computer. And I've just chosen a couple of garden or nature related ones to put into this journal, because I might use it as my gardening journal when it's finished. So anything garden related in this case, I'm going to stain. So images like this, that's just another type of one that I'll stain just for another added interest. Florals, some with text, and I'm also going to do some plain ones that we can insert into the journal, as well as I'm going to try some of these little doilies as well, and maybe sandwich them in between a couple of sheets to see if the pattern actually transfers onto the plain paper when it dries. So the process is really is just getting the tea onto the papers, and then you can either let them dry naturally or you can dry them very, very quickly in your oven. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to show you very briefly how it's done. Get these out of the way. And just pick the papers I'm going to do. So what I've got here is a concentrated tea that I've just brewed, and it needs to be quite strong to get the colour. You can also use coffee, so you could buy a very cheap instant coffee and make up a solution of that as well. That will do the job. So either tea or coffee is good. And essentially all you need is a bit of a tray, especially if you're going to put them in the oven to dry. Or you could lay them out on a plastic sheet, even outdoors, and let them dry in the sun. So for this one, I'm just going to get a paintbrush, and all you do is literally paint the tea onto the paper. You can also do this in quite a big batch if you wish. You get a deeper tray and put a lot of papers in at once, and let them soak for a while, and just separate them out and leave them flat to dry as separately as you can, or just dry them in the oven. In the oven they only take about 2 to 3 minutes at a low heat. And that is literally all you do. You can make it a little bit more concentrated in spots if you wish, and it gives it that lovely old vintage effect when it's dry. I'm just going to put that one aside just for a minute to show you the doily one. Just going to put it on this, out of the way. I'm just going to get a plain sheet. And just like with the other one, just brushing it on. If this was a deep pan and you were doing a good few at once, you can just pour the tea into the pan and let them soak up. So yeah, so maybe these will leave an imprint on the plain paper, but either way they'll get stained themselves. And I'm going to use those doilies just to insert into the book as well, and we'll be doing that later. So that's the simplest way to do it, and I'm going to now let them dry in the oven, and we'll be back in a minute to show you the finished article. So now the papers have all been dried in the oven, and as you can see, they dry quite crinkly. They're probably making an awful racket at the moment on the camera, but hopefully you can hear me. And they just give that lovely kind of vintagey look. So these are some of the printed ones, and some of them have taken up some of the stains on the baking sheet, which is fine. And some of them are more concentrated in some areas than others. That's the lined one with it's like an old address book type of thing. And these are the doilies, which came out fine. And they did manage to print, leave an imprint on the paper underneath. I hope you can see that. I'll bring it a bit closer. So yeah, they've left a faint mark of the doily on the paper, which is nice. And these are just some of the plain ones. I've let some of the tea pool on this one here, which gives it a little bit more interest, and more on the outside. And where the one I dried these in a layer,
So just the one on top just pull the T away, which is nice as well. So that's it. It's pretty straightforward, and like I say, you can use these type of printed papers. I'll leave some links to some that you can download that you can use for your just for your own use. But you can also you can also copy things out of books. I have this lovely old encyclopedia of gardening that my dad gave me many years ago, and you could copy pages in this as well to print out and stain, or just use plain. So books like these, when the charity shops are open, you can get them there, and these type of books are great to you can actually tear out the pages if you're not too precious about it, or you can copy the pages and print them. So there's many ways that you can get the printed papers for staining, or for just using as they are. So in the next section, we'll just be putting all the different types of papers together in our signature to bind to the cover. And I'll just show you how to, we're going to make the cover out of just a piece of card that we're going to cover with some decorative paper. So we'll be doing that next. So now I've gone ahead and started to fold all the papers in half. So these are the printed and plain tea-dyed ones. These are the pages made out of the paper bag. And I've also cut out some from the packaging paper, and I've just left a little extra flap on these ones, because when they go into the collection of paper or the signature, they will have we can glue that on the top and the bottom, and you can tuck things into it. So I'll go through that once we put it together, how we can use that extra little flap. I've also got some printed papers, more decorative papers that are in the garden theme, as it's going to be a gardening journal. Page from the vintage gardening magazine that I used the rose for in the collage in the last workshop. So that has beautiful colours. I just photographed a page out of my dad's gardening book, the right way around, and just printed it out, so that can go in. This one it's quite faint, but it's like a little embroidered doily, so that's quite nice. These are printouts of some plates, which are kind of garden themed as well. And then we've got some plain paper as well, which I've just folded in half. So these type of pages will be good for paintings, drawings, collages, that type of thing. I said I put in some tracing paper as well, and you'll be able to see something like that through it if it's beside it. All will be revealed when we put it together. And then I've got also some just sugar paper in different colours for a little added interest as well. We've got our printed papers, like the ones we did in the first workshop. So So little monoprints, pages where we've cleaned our roller, and then some a variety of different ones, and these are some little doodle paintings I've done, which can also be a page. There's a few more over here, and this one is a little bit of a heavier paper, so I might be able to use that to create a little pocket. So they're the printed papers and the plain papers, and then we've got the doilies that we stained. So I've folded them so they will, just to show you, they will go into in between, let's say, a couple of pages. So you'll see them, you know, on either side. So that's the doily, and we have some plain doilies as well that we can put in. So I just have to do these last couple of pages. So you're literally just folding them like this and just giving them a good crease with your fingers. That's the coloured one, which we'll put over here together. And then we have a few smaller pieces that you can also insert. So this is like a just a little sandwich bag. So when you put it within the signature, let me just get another page to show you. You can use it like a little envelope, somewhere to put, let's say, some paper for writing on, or it could be a photograph that will peek through that because it's a little bit transparent. And then on the other side, we'll work out what to do with it. We could open it up and make another envelope, or we could make it into a pocket by gluing some of this down. I'll show you all of that when we get to when we've actually bound the journal and we start to decorate it. I've also got some little pieces of graph paper, just for a little bit of difference and variety. I've got this this little bottle bag, which I've just cut to fit, and again, that will, within the signature, on one side you'll have a little pocket there, and on the other side we could create a little place where you can put something in from the top. So I'll go through all of that, sort of how we use these smaller pieces within the journal when we have it bound. So what else have we got? I have this fabric as well. I thought I'd put in because it had some flower printing on it. This is from a workshop I did a couple of years ago in the community garden. It's a flower printing technique called hapazomi, where you use like a hammer to pound the flowers, and their dye goes into the fabric. So I thought that would be nice within the signature, so it'll kind of look like that depending on what page it's up against. And then I think the last type of page is just this envelope, which I've turned inside out. I've just taken it apart at the seams, turned it inside out, and I put something behind the window and again we'll work out what we can do with this, but essentially it will be folded within the signature again. And we could put the flap in this way instead, and whatever you put in will be seen through that little window, so they're quite interesting as well. And they're all of these pages, I might not use all of them, it depends on what will fit, but I've made a cover. I've just got a piece of card, and I've backed it with a piece of decorative paper that I have, and then I've taped down one of the tea-stained images inside, and I have this lovely see-through paper that I'll put over that, so that will be kind of the outside of the whole signature. Everything else will go in the middle of it. So I'll start putting that together now, deciding which piece goes beside which, and then I will show you how to bind it using a sewing technique, which is very, very straightforward.
So I'm putting the papers together here in the signature. I've sorted all the papers into similar types, and I'm just trying to get a good varied mix, and checking all the time that pages are working well against each other. So it's just a process of putting them together, seeing what looks good beside each page, and switching them about as needed. Some of the pages are smaller than others, so I like to get a good dispersal of them throughout the journal, so that they're not all together.
So we've got all the papers into the signature now, more or less ready to be bound by sewing into the cover. Off camera I've just tidied it up a bit, so I'll just go through that with you now. I've added a few pages as well and taken some away. So I'm just going to find the middle of the signature so I can hold it, and I'll just go through the papers with you. So we've got this little outer sleeve of tissue paper, and then some of the printed papers, paper bag, the monoprint clean and sheet. This is a little one I've added, which would be good for a list or something like that. Some more of the tea-dyed paper. I've folded this one down because we can create a little tuck in it. When it's bound into the journal, we'll have to glue it on one side. I've put in some just ordinary copybook paper. There's a printed paper, tea-dye paper, doily, plain paper, tracing paper, magazine, tea-dye. And as you can see, they're all a little bit higgledy-piggledy, which is fine. In fact, it adds to the charm of the journal. I'm trying to keep these smaller bits central so that they definitely get caught in the central stitch. I'll show you that in a sec. So yeah, I've added in these little graph papers, some more recycled packaging, the recycled envelope, another monoprint cleaning sheet, printed papers. I've added this one in as well, which is like a little ledger, which just gives it a little bit of variety and interest. More of the plain paper, another monoprint, tea dye, some coloured paper, some little doodle paintings, some more printed paper. I've trimmed down the piece of fabric because it was going over a little bit over the edge and it looked a bit untidy, so I've just trimmed that down and used my pinking shears to just do the edge of it. This is the tea-dyed paper with the doily imprint. Some more plain paper, more printed paper with a monoprint overprint. I've added this little piece in as well. That looks a little bit off centre, so I'll show you how to how to centralise that. A little lunch bag, more printed paper. I've also folded this one down to create a little tuck, which will be glued on this side when it's all bound. And this, which will probably be another kind of tuck, but I'll work on that once we get it bound. And the central page. So what we will be doing to bind it is we'll be creating some holes. I'll be creating 3 holes throughout the whole thing right to the cover. And you don't have to measure this, you can do it by eye. But what's kind of important is that you maybe check that the smaller pieces of paper are being included in the stitches. Now if they're central, they'll definitely get the central stitch. So I've just made this little guide for the width of the cover, and I'm going to say my central stitch is going to be about there and my 2 side stitches are going to be about there. So there's one piece back here that didn't look central, this one. So I'm just carefully holding this down so it doesn't shift. And I just see, now that's okay because those 2 stitches will catch it. If it was on the edge of that stitch, I might just shift it up. So that's all right. And I've checked all the other pages more or less to make sure that they're central. Now this is quite a thick journal, so I'd say for your first attempt, maybe don't put as many pages into it till you get used to the binding. So for example, I'll just close this for a sec. So this little one has less pages and might be more manageable for a first attempt. So this is bound in the centre here, as you'll see. So the stitching, there's 3 holes, and the stitching goes through all those holes, and I'll show you how to do that now. But yeah, maybe a few less pages than I've tried here. I might even have to, if I can't get through them, I might have to take some out, but we'll see how it goes. So before we start, I'm just noticing that this page here, I wanted to stick it down to create a little place that we could tuck something in behind it. But this page is now halved, so I might just switch it around to there, so that it has a full page behind it. And then just switch them. So that should be fine now. And when you can rearrange the papers as you see fit, or it's important just to have a little bit of variety in them, so you can, if you don't like one up against the other, you can shift it around in the signature until you're happy. And when all the pages are more or less in position, what I like to do is just like to get my ruler and just grab it to shove it in as much as I can. So that they're nice and tight into the cover. Now, as I say, this is quite thick, so I might have to take some out. We'll see how it goes, but I'm happy enough with that. I might shift the whole thing down the tiniest bit. Yep. Okay, so that's more or less ready. I'm just going to leave it there for a sec while I show you the things that you'll need to sew the signature into the cover. So you'll need some sort of thread. This is a waxed thread that I use, but you could use something like embroidery thread, or actually in this journal I didn't have any wax thread, so I used just some dental floss. So that's perfect because that's waxed as well and it's quite strong. So something like that will do the job, or embroidery thread, something that's quite thick. And you need a darning needle or something quite big to get through the holes. To create the holes, you need something sharp like this tool. This is an awl. They're sometimes called bradawls as well. You can get them in hardware shops, but if you don't have one, something like a compass or anything sharp with the sharp end on it will do the job. A skewer, maybe a thin skewer, but just something sharp that will go through all the pages right to the cover. So I'll show you how to do that now, and the stitching, the type of stitch that's required to put it all together.
So here I've just attached some clips to keep the pages together. So these are just big paper clips, but you can use things like hair grips or anything that you have that will hold the pages together. And I have this little guide which is just giving me an idea where I'm going to punch my holes for the binding, where I'm going to actually punch holes and sew through to the cover. So I'm just kind of it's not exactly measured. And here I'm taking my awl and I'm going punching through, aiming to get onto the center of the spine there, and being careful not to stab myself in the hand. So just carefully going through. Now this journal is very thick, so you'll have a much easier job if you use less pages, getting the all through the pages and the cover. It'll go through very easily for you. And you can see it's come out in the center of the cover on the other side. And what I'll do to cover up those kind of holes and the stitching at the end is to maybe use a cover over that as decoration, and to cover up the holes. So that's the first hole through, and I'm just making sure that because it's such a thick journal, I'm just making sure that it's gone well through. And I'm going to do my second hole. Again, just using my awl to go the whole way through to the cover. I've just lost my paper clip, so I'll just get that back on. So going right through, making the biggest hole that I can, using the awl pushing it right to the end. And then my third hole goes at the top. As I say, you'll have a much easier time getting through the pages with a smaller journal. This one is particularly thick. And because there's so much movement, the clips just keep coming off for me, so I just have to wiggle them back on again just to keep it together. So I'm just going through them one last time to make sure they're all aligning and I'm not skipping any of the pages. You probably won't need to do this with lesser pages.
Now I'm going to thread my needle with the thread, and just to make sure you have enough thread, you just more or less eyeball about 3 lengths of the book. And I'm going to give it a little extra because the thing is so thick. And then it's just a matter of threading your needle. So The first stitch is through the middle out to the cover. And then you leave a tail, which will be tied in the end. And then you come back in through the top hole. Just move it around a wee bit. And back through the top hole. Down to the bottom hole. And out the other side. Just going to pull that a wee bit. And then your final stitch is going to go back through the middle. Okay. Now, that's essentially the stitch. Now, when you tie it, you want to make sure that one side of the string is on one side of this long piece and the other is on the other, because you're going to tie over this longer piece. Hope that makes sense. So just pull it as tight as you can. And I didn't need the extra thread. Cut it. And then making sure that you're on either side of that longer piece of thread, you make a few knots. So I'm going to make about 3 or 4 knots. Okay, and then just leave like you can leave them hanging like that. And then I can take off my clips that were holding the book together. And there we have it, it's bound. So you can see the threads on the outside. If I had not managed to get on the exact spine there, I can cover this up. I might cover that up anyway. We'll see when we come to the decoration. But now it's all together, so we'll be able to look at it a little bit easier. So they've all caught. All the different pages. So as you can see, it keeps them quite secure, tied together. Right to the center. Okay, and obviously the same on the other side, they're all intact. So that's the binding part. So the next part is to decorate some of these pages and to put some further little pockets and tucks and things that are useful for, let's say for this type of journal, maybe for putting seed packets in, or for any type of journal, for putting any sort of memorabilia into these little tucks. So I'll be adding some of those sort of decorations on, and we'll also look at the front cover. I'll just grab this here. So I'm looking to put maybe a little decorative piece on the front. So this is cut out of it was like a pattern on a curtain, so I've just cut it out. It was an embroidered piece on a curtain, and I've just cut it out, and I'm just laying it on a darker piece of material, just a scrap piece of material that I have. I think it was a cushion cover or something. And I'll just play around with that so that we have a little catch that can go over the side of the journal. We can play around with that once we get to the next stage of decorating. Okay, so I've gone ahead and decorated the front of the journal with some fabric. So the fabric I've used is from this old swatch book that I got in the recycling centre. So I think they're upholstery swatches, and they're really lovely. So I've cut some of them up to use for the covers. So for the back, I've brought it the whole way around the back, and then just glued it down on the back cover, the inside of the back cover, and that will strengthen that edge. And the same on the front. I've just used this piece, glued it down, brought it over the edge, and it strengthens that edge. And this flower, which I've showed you already, is from an old curtain that I've cut up, and it has these lovely embroidered flowers on them. So I've just cut one of them out and stuck that down as well. And that more or less has decorated the front of my cover. I will use, you know, when I'm not using the journal, I'll just use a piece of ribbon to go around it and tie it to just keep it together. And I've started to decorate some of the pages, and I'm going to go through some of the decoration with you as well, but I'll just show you some of the stuff I've done already. So on this first page here, I've created this little corner tuck space, and it's essentially from a printout of a little embroidered doily. I have some of these linked in the video information for you, which you can print and download as well. And that kind of space just allows you to, you know, just tuck something into it. You know, it could be, you know, seed packets, or it could be pieces of information, or a combination of all of those things. And you can also write in the background. On this page, I've attached this little paper bag which I've stamped, and that just flips up. You can still write behind it, you can write on it, and again you can put, you know, things in there and keep it down with this paper clip. So these little spaces are great for tucking in my case, because it's a gardening journal, seed packets or information, but any kind of keepsake or piece of memorabilia can get tucked in there. The bag is attached with this decorative tape, which is called washi tape. So they come in little rolls like this, and you can get them in the craft shops, or I've seen them in places like Deals sometimes. But if you don't have any of that, you can cut up some of your decorative papers and stick things down with them as well. So there's many ways that you can do it. On this side, I've just collaged some extra pieces of paper on top of this piece of printed paper, and done a couple of stamps. On this page, I've created a bottom pocket with this decorative paper. I have lots of these kind of decorative papers because I make cards, and I've just glued it down on those three sides and left the top open. And again, you know, you can put information in there, you know, your cards, memorabilia, seed packets, all that sort of thing. And I've also made this little mini notebook for my herbs. So I had these little herb stamps, so I've just stamped them onto the individual pages. So it's a little piece of extra information that I can put in there. In these spaces, you can also put in, you know, extra pieces of paper for writing on, or, you know, things like index cards, or a combination of all of those things. So these are really handy, these little tuck spaces. On this side, the back of this piece of paper, I've just stuck down an old vintage illustration of a daffodil. So any kind of printed papers or decorative papers can be attached to the backs of pages, especially if they're plain. On this, I've just done a little stamp. This is, let me just show you it unfinished on the other side. So this little page that I folded before I bound the book to create a little tuck space, I've just added some decorative paper on the back, and I've just done a stamp on the front. But again, that acts as a little tuck space for cards or extra paper or whatever you want. And because it flips up, you can still write on the back of it, and you don't take up this page either. So it's a kind of a floating tuck spot. On this page, I've just done a little bit of stenciling with this little stencil here, so I've just laid it down. We'll do a little bit of that when I show you some of the decoration, and just sponged through, just to give a light effect on the page, just to, as decoration. I've started to write on this page about my roses, since it was overlaying that image of the roses, and we'll probably create a little pocket on this page when I do the demo. And this is another tuck space that you can tuck something into, and it'll show through with the little window. I've stuck down a piece of paper there because this had come through on the back. So, you know, if you have any pages that you don't like, you can cover them with decorative papers as well. I've created this this bottom tuck space from a little piece of card, and this is just a little recycled paper bag from the chemist, and I've just stuck it down on the bottom with a little bit of washi tape, the decorative tape. But again, you could use something like this to tape it down. And this just flips up, but you can put a number of things in there. It's quite deep, so you could put a number of things in there together. And it's just like a place for your keepsakes or extra information or extra paper. You know, you could just store some extra paper in there. This is made from some acetate that I found in food packaging. It was like the cover of an apple tart, the lid of it. So you'll find this type of material in a lot of food packaging, so save it where you can. And all I've done here is I've stenciled through on the background page and then just stuck this down. And again, you can just put your pieces of paper in there where you'll see them. This is an envelope which I've just done a little stamp on, and I've attached it in the center of the page so that it flips up. It doesn't attach to the page itself, so that you can still write on it. You can write on the back of the envelope and, you know, use the envelope itself for putting things into. And again, I've just taped it down with a little bit of washi tape. This is a napkin. So I've just torn out a piece of this napkin. I'll show you how to do this. And I've just glued it down to the page as a background, and then put a piece of the recycled material on the left, just as a space where you can tuck something in. A little stamp on that page. Just another little piece of paper with stenciling on it. This is a piece of fabric which I've just glued onto a piece of card as a little tag. So I'll just show you how to make some tags. These are just, again, extra little pieces of paper that you can use, things like these clips to just hold them into place. So paper clips are quite handy for keeping things together. That fabric is from an old dress of my daughter's, and it has some beautiful kind of garden themed prints on it, so I thought it was quite appropriate. And you know, you can cut out pieces of fabric, stick them onto card, and they can be part of the journal that you can write on the back of them. We have to cut that to make it accessible, so we can do that later. This is near the center now. If you remember, this was a thicker piece of card that I'd printed on, and that just needs to be stuck down there and there to act as a tuck space for whatever you want to put into it. So we'll do that later. We might put a little stamp there as well. And then on the other side, I've just cut that down to be a side tuck. This one, let's see what side that's on. This one is the same as this. So again, this was folded before the book was bound and folded up. So the idea is that it's glued down on this side for it to become a tuck. and I've just put some decorative papers on the back and on the front to create the actual tuck itself. So you can add things to the pages at any stage. And this is the other side of that bag, which is open, and again that's another little space where you can put something, you know, your seeds. I have these little seed packets that I make for when I save seeds, but anything can be put in there, a little card, whatever you have that's relevant to the page. And I've just done some stenciling on the background of this page. This is like a bigger kind of tag, which gives you some more writing space. So that's just a little crocheted flower that I've printed out and stuck onto some card, and I'll go through how we'll attach that when I do the demo. This is an envelope with the window, which I've turned inside out, and I've flipped it out and then around the next page, so you can stick something in there, and then on the other page it flips up, so you have some space there, and you have this full page here. And this is the last page I've done so far. So this page, I'm just using some fabric. So this fabric is dyed with turmeric. So it's quite an easy process. You just dissolve some turmeric in water, and you can dye your papers with them, and you can do tie-dyeing techniques and that type of thing. So I've just cut out a piece of that, and then I have this lighter kind of gauze, shimmery gauze, that I've just done some printing with my homemade stamp, and then that overlays it, and that's just really a decorative element to the journal, kind of like the material in this dress. It can be a keepsake. It can have some relevance to your memories, or so. Fabric is quite nice to include, and then you can see it through these little holes on the other side, and that's more or less the decoration I've done so far. But I'm going to go through a few of those things and how you can do them yourself in the next section. Before we go on to the demo, I just want to actually show you this one as well. So this is the smaller journal that I showed you the papers for, and I've just created a cover for it using some card from a cereal packet, and I've used our decorative monoprinted papers that we did in workshop 1 for the cover. So essentially I've used two separate sheets to cover the front and the back, and then I've used one bigger piece on the inside of the cover. This is one of the sheets that we used to clean the brayer, so that's front and back. And then inside I've just attached one of these little envelopes, which is made from the monoprinted papers, and there's a link to how to make these in the video information of workshop 1. And then it's just a small notebook which I've put together using some recycled papers, the monoprint papers, and then some other type of coloured paper and plain papers, just from the ends of copybooks and that type of thing. Some graph paper. So it's a little combination of a few different types. But this size is kind of ideal for if you've printed it in A5 like I did. These are ideal. This notebook is ideal size to use those up as actual pages because they double over. That's again, it's bound the same way, and I've just put a bit of washi tape over the edge to cover the spine. So that's another way that you can use up your papers by creating a smaller book, but using the same techniques as we did with the bigger one. So yeah, that's all the pages, and then the back sleeve also has another little envelope that I've made from the monoprint papers. So that's another size and use for your printed papers.
So now we're going to go through some ways that you can decorate the journal. Here I've got a tag, which is essentially a piece of card or paper that you can attach into the journal or into a tuck or pocket, and it allows you some extra writing space. So I'm going to show you how to make that now. So I've just got a little piece of card here and a decorative paper napkin. So I'm just going to, the napkins are normally about 2 ply, sometimes 3 ply, but generally 2 ply, and I'm just going to try and separate the 2 layers, and I'm going to use the top decorative layer for attaching to the card to create the little tag. This second layer has also got the imprint of it, so that can be used as well. It can be quite nice. So I'm just going to cut out a piece of the napkin to lay over my piece of card, and I'm going to use some watered down PVA glue and a brush to just gently brush it onto so the napkin glues down. Trying to work as much as possible from the center out. I'm going quite careful because the napkin is quite delicate. Just making sure everything is stuck down. So yeah, I've just been quite gentle so it doesn't tear. And now I'm going to just quickly dry it with my hair dryer so that I can speed things up. And now I've just cut off all the extra bits on the edges, and I've rounded my corners to just make it a little bit more interesting. And I'm using this little paper punch to just create a little hole for my string, or you can use ribbon. In this case I'm just going to use a little bit of string to create a tag at the top, and then I can attach that into the journal. So I'm just going to use a little bit of washi tape to attach it in. Washi tape is handy for these type of things. And that gives me that extra little writing space. The next thing I'm going to do is a bottom pocket, which I'm making out of this card from a recycled calendar. So I've just cut it to size, and I'm just going to glue it down on three sides to just leave an opening at the top. So I'm just using a Pritt stick here and putting it on as thinly as possible to create the biggest opening possible. And just attaching it to my background paper, where I can just put something in there. I'm also going to do the same thing with this monoprinted paper that we did in the first workshop. And again, I'm just going to apply glue on three sides to leave an opening at the top. This one is a corner tuck. So it's just a triangular piece of card instead of a square or a rectangle, and it's going to go onto the side of the page. So I just need to glue them on two sides and leave the longer side open. Again, use my Pritt stick just to get some glue on it, and then attaching it to the page. That creates my little side tuck where you can still write on the background of the page. So you've got a little bit more space then with the bottom tuck. Here I've got this dried flower and I've put it into a piece of cellophane that I've taken from a greeting card wrapper. And this kind of thing lets you protect things like dried flowers while still making them visible. So I'm going to just attach it to the page with a piece of washi tape. And that just ran out, so I'm going to just grab another one. Attaching it to the little cellophane envelope and putting it over the edge of the page so that it becomes a little flip out. And you can see the washi on the other side as well. And you can obviously write still underneath. This is a bigger type of tag as well, made out of a print out of a crochet flower, and I've got some backed it onto a piece of card. And again, I'm just going to treat this like a little flip out and attach it with a piece of washi tape on the edge of the page. Flips up and it gives you a piece of extra writing space. This is the center, near the center page, where I'm going to create another corner tuck, and I'm just going to stamp on the middle of this with this butterfly stamp and some red stamping ink. So this just adds a little decoration to the tuck space. I'm also going to take a little makeup sponge and using the the same ink, I'm just going to ink the edges just to give them a little bit more definition. There's some tears on the paper, so that just kind of tidies them up. And if you don't have ink like this, you can use like colored pencils or pastels or something like that to just color the edges and smudge them a little bit, but it just defines the page a little bit better. And I'm just going to put a piece of paper in to protect it while I glue this pocket down. So I'm just applying pressure on the side and the bottom and attaching it to the page. And that becomes a little tuck spot. Here I'm going to use a stencil to just sponge through a subtle pattern onto the background of the page. And I'm using an ink stamp here, but you can use watered down paint instead. And I'm just sponging it through lightly just to create a very subtle pattern. So there you have it, some ideas for decorating your journal, which you can do at any stage. But as well as these techniques, there's lots of other ways you can approach being creative in your journal from day to day.
So I just want to quickly show you a few other types of pages that you can do as part of journals. This one is like a mix between a collage and a painted with a painted background. And essentially what I've done is I've collaged some old newspaper torn up and glued down on the background. Used some white paint to go over it in places. I've stuck down a printout of this hydrangea flower and I've coloured it. I've stuck down this little dried flower with a little bit of washi tape. I've cut out this butterfly out of a book page, and I've just glued it down in the centre so that it flaps up. And I've handwritten this poem about spring. And then this little ticket is just attached with a paper clip. So this type of page is essentially a collage with some written. And you can use it. You can do it in this type of sketchbook, or you could do it on a page and stick it into any of your journals that you want, or just tuck it into one of the tuck spaces. When doing these type of painted pages, you can record, the swatches of colours that you use, so a reminder of, how you mix them or whatever. And you can also use your journal to, if you're testing out materials like I have here with some watercolour pencils, you can use that to record and refer back to. This is another type of spread. Again, it's a kind of a collage spread with a dark background which has been splattered. This book page is stuck on. It relates to dandelions, its medical virtues and that type of thing. And on the back of the dandelion, which is a cutout from a printed on my computer, just a little poem about the bees. So this is all about saving the bees and how important the dandelions are for them at the beginning of spring. This is a little collaged element so with some dark paper, paper from a book. This is actually a dried tea bag which I've emptied and just dried, and a little print out of the bee. And on the left here I've just stenciled through some gesso onto the page to just give it a little texture and painted over it. And there's a little stamp there in the corner as well. This final one is, in this book, is a painted background mainly. except for this piece here, which is actually a napkin, which I've just torn up and glued down, and then I've painted around it to kind of integrate it into the page. I've done some painting over here, and then used a white pen to give the impression of flowers. So some little doodles like that, and I've also typed out and printed out this little sayings just to add to it. So there's some double kind of pages that you can do using some painted and collage techniques, and you can either do them in a book like this, or you can do them on a page and put them into your junk journal, or directly into your junk journal on over a couple of pages as well. This little one is a combination of, again, this is a napkin which has been glued down to as a background, and these are some little tags for writing, and a little corner tuck which I've stamped, but this one flips up as well, so you have some extra writing space there. And this one here is also a tea bag, which I've emptied and dried, and I've just stuck down part of a napkin, so you could stick anything really down on that.
So yeah, there are just a couple of other approaches to being creative in your journal. I also wanted to talk a little bit about written entries in your journal. So these will be part of how you keep your journal from day to day. And writing in your journal will be very unique to you. Can range from practical info to entries about what's happening in your life, your thoughts, your dreams. Again, very unique to you, and related to, as well, the decorative parts of your journal. So, I mean, writings could also just be creative writing. It could be poetry. It could be, anything that is really personal to you. And then in relation to the writing, you can keep all manner of items that are linked to the entries. So in this case, I've put in some seed packets and some information about the plants that I'm sowing. The written entry is about just a record of what I'm sowing on particular dates, and how I hope to care for them and transplant them, that type of thing. So the written elements of your journal will combine with all the creative and decorative elements, and you can use your tucks and all that sort of thing to add extra information or memorabilia. In this case, because I've been writing about my beetroot, I've just done a little sketch as well, and I'm just going to add that in. So there you have it. That concludes my second workshop, and I really hope you've enjoyed learning about the techniques to create your own unique journals. As I said at the outset, being creative on a regular basis in a journal can be very therapeutic, and it allows you to escape from the hustle and bustle of life for a while. I hope you enjoyed trying out all the techniques I've shown you over the last 2 workshops, and I'd love to see some of your creations should you wish to share them. If you have any questions at all, please let me know in the comments, and please join my Facebook group so I can continue to share journaling tips and prompts with you. You'll find a link in the video description below. So all that remains is to thank Dublin City Arts Office for funding the workshops, and also to thank you all very much for taking part, and happy journaling.